During all that time, I was out of fentanyl and decided the last thing I was going to do was try and get more opiates. I knew that would make things worse. I had a prescription pad. I could, probably go on the run for a few days or a week or two, but that would have just been, adding crimes to the thing and good chance of something really bad happening. I knew that was not the way.
And had you told your partner at this point?
Oh yeah, yes. That was an exciting conversation. The poor thing. Yeah. I said there's something I have to tell you, and still, 27 years later, 26 years later, if I say those words in that order.
I have something to tell you.
This piece of the PTSD comes back up. Yes.
For me, it's whenever I hear my name, I think it's going to be bad. Like David.
Exactly.
Whenever I hear my name.
The inflection at the end of rising.
Yeah. I'm David Duchovny, and this is Fail Better, a show where failure, not success, shapes who we are. Dr. Jason Giles is a specialist in addiction medicine and anesthesiology. He has devoted his life to helping people recover from their struggles with substance abuse. Jason is also a friend of mine, and while I've never formally been a patient of his, he's helped me out a ton over the years. I'm thrilled to have Jason on the podcast today to listen to him tell his story, so I don't want to spoil it too much. Suffice it to say, he was drawn to the work he does today because of his own experiences with addiction. He's lived an incredible life, has a beautiful family that I know very well, and he supported so many in their recovery through the groundbreaking work he does day in and day out. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to him to tell you all about his journey and the unique perspective he's able to bring to his practice. Here's my friend, Dr. Jason Giles. Good morning, Jason.
Good morning, David.
It's nice to see you. I haven't seen you in a while.
It's nice to see you, too.
You are my guinea pig today.
Awesome.
As I embrace the stupid question. Here's my first stupid question to you. I would start with is who are you? Tell me who you are. Tell me a little bit about your childhood, where you got to at a certain point, and where you are now.
Sure. The précis. This question is actually not so stupid a question. It's a humble, simple question. As a starting point, I grew up in Southern California. I grew up in Santa Monica. Raised in a rent control apartment with an alcoholic father and an awesomely codependent mother, and that. And one younger sister. And that balance of the family kind of making its way, getting it through, shaped my early sense of the world, myself in it, but the world also. I went to public schools. I was one of the smart kids growing up. I could do stuff. I was in special programs for being smart, so I was rewarded for that. And I think maybe like an athlete or somebody else with a talent, I hit the gas on that.
A mathlete.
A mathlete, yes, math and science. And that wound up ultimately taking me to Berkeley for college and then medical school and residency. I fell in love with clinical medicine working in the Berkeley Free Clinic when I was a college student there. And as I was going through school, I got more and more interested in the harder and harder things, the more complicated, the more involved, the more complex. That's the stuff that turned me on. And so I wound up in anesthesia, which is all patients for all surgery and with all medical problems. There's a recurring theme, which is based on those early experiences, I think, this is my understanding of it today, is based on those early experiences, I was seeking to understand the world in an attempt to manage the world, in an attempt to control the chaos around. It's very chaotic in an operating room, and the anesthesiologist stands at the head of the table and is the one administering calm, if you will, not just in the form of the chemicals, but it's the coxswain, if you will, of the whole operating room, coordinating the nurses and when the surgeon starts and keeping everything on track. So that was a fish and water situation for me back then. Loved it. Yeah. But then there were some other adventures to have along the way that revealed some deeper insights, which I have a hunch we might get into.
I feel like we're almost there. Because I do want to talk about our relationship and how we met. And I think I don't think we can actually get into that until we take you further on your journey. And
that's probably true. Otherwise, it won't make any sense. Why would a nice guy like you be talking to a guy like me? It doesn't make any sense. This drive to become okay by knowing things, maybe the simplest way to say it, left me feeling flat. I did not feel okay, despite acquiring an enormous amount of knowledge and competence and excellence in an area. And probably behind that feeling of emptiness, my assessment of this is kaleidoscopic because there's different facets, but my sense looking back at the time is that I wanted some relief from my own thoughts, of inadequacy, of incompetence, of just being wrong overall, generally wrong. I think most people, I bet every one of your listeners has a deep suspicion that they're missing something or that they're inadequate in some way. That's a universal feeling. Where it gets into pathologic is thinking that there's something I can do to fix it, because it doesn't need to be fixed. That missing bit is the yearning for connection, for spirituality.
How are you using the word pathologic at that point?
Well, if you think there's something wrong with you and there isn't, then the next step you take is guaranteed to be wrong, because you're trying to fix a problem that there isn't an actual problem.
Okay.
Right? It's just a story that I had told myself, and it's a story that a lot of people tell themselves, that they're don't fit, don't belong, not good enough. That and so the bargain I made was not, let's get to the heart of this, figure out what's actually wrong. I need help. I'm going down. It was, okay, I need to work harder. I need to manage. I need to manage my own internal chemical environment by bringing in some extra neurotransmitters from the top drawer of the anesthesia cart, and then I'll be able to keep going. And that's pathologic, right? That's where I think everyone would agree that the cart has come off the rails. It's well past time to ask for help when you're considering managing your feelings with fentanyl, which is what I was doing. So, but again, this is my understanding of it post hoc. At the time, it seemed like a really good idea. It seemed to me like, who better to manage his feelings than the guy trained in all these chemicals? It seemed like a really smart idea at the time.
Right. So,
yeah, you and I were chatting earlier about what constitutes failure, and I think it has to do with timing. It has to do with the timing of our awareness. Sometimes our biggest mistakes turn out to be the portals or the thresholds of our greatest success and insights, and vice versa. Sometimes that, right, finish arms.
Well, one of the things one of the things that I've come to realize having these discussions is, and I think it's kind of this Chinese proverb that people have been talking about for a couple of years, and I don't know it, but the punchline, the through line is, at this point, we don't know.
Too soon to tell, yeah.
Too soon to tell.
Yeah.
So that is pretty much where I'm standing today on success and failure. Oh, this is a success. This is a great success. You're a doctor. Well, it's too soon to tell.
Yes.
This is a great failure. You're a junkie doctor.
Right.
Well, it's too soon to tell.
It's too soon to tell.
So you wrote, when we first met, you gave me a self-published memoir. I guess we call it a memoir, called Junkie Doctor,
right.
and that's where we are at this point in your story, right? So at this point, you stand to lose so much by the time it got unmanageable for you, because you managed for a while. You're very, you're capable.
Kept the plate spinning. Yeah, for sure.
So how long were you able to anesthetize yourself while being employed? And
well, there's an interesting piece of it, which is the chemical itself is actually a smaller part of the story. The part that takes up that took up more of my mental windscreen. My thought space was just what you said. I have so much to lose. And so the oddly reinforcing notion that there's something wrong with you played out in the fact that I was behaving as if there was in fact I had created something quite wrong with me by doing that. Now taking drugs from the hospital, the danger of self-administration, all that stuff, progressive dependence, as marked on a map by the distance between when I first used, which was my backyard of my house, which is about 10 miles away from the hospital. And then several weeks would go by because I knew that was the wrong thing to do, but I sort of in my mind constructed it as an escape hatch. Okay, I have this thing in case it gets bad meaning my feelings about myself or the stress or the intensity. Mm-hmm. I can take a break. I can take a break and look, nothing happened. And then a few weeks later, I got to do it again, and again, nothing happened. And then a couple of weeks later, and then a week later, and then a couple days later, and then the next day, and so the distance away from the hospital got shorter and shorter and shorter, until finally, at the end, couldn't wait for it to be the end of the day, end of the shift, and walking out in the last OR bathroom on the way out the door, right? Just before I even got in my car.
Instead of the break from the pressure, it becomes the thing itself.
Becomes its own pressure, yes.
And the work is becoming a break that you don't want from the feelings that you do want.
Precisely. Yeah. So I created a double mess.
The world
it's
upside down.
A vice grip of mess, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Wow, that's terrifying. I mean, can you take me back to the moment before it falls apart, which is actually the moment where it all comes together? Because at this point, we don't know.
The turning point of the story is when when I'm miserable all day long at work because I'm in withdrawal. I'm in withdrawal from the opiates, which feels like, one of my patients best described it. He said, each drop of sweat has thorns. Uh-huh. So everything hurts, everything's awful, everything's miserable. And I'm trying to function that way while basically, so I'm not intoxicated, but I'm the opposite of that. I need to be intoxicated. Mm-hmm. So I'm struggling through the day. I've got my plans that all I have to do is stop. All I have to do is just not do it for a couple of days, and then I'll be all right. And of course, that day I don't make it. I get through the work. I get through the end of the day. Patient's okay. No point was I ever intoxicated dealing with patients. But let's be honest. I was not in my right mind while doing that. So I get to the end of the day. I've got my fentanyl that I've argued with myself all day about not using, but I use it just to get the sick off, just to feel not so bad. And I'm almost back home, and I get a page from the department chair, who she doesn't usually talk to the residents. You don't usually get a call from the boss, and so I call back and I say, "What's up?" He says, "Not casting any accusations. However, a large amount of fentanyl is missing from the hospital OR pharmacy. If it's all back by 6:00, then this phone call never happened." And so that was my invitation. That was my worst day ever, was coming to light from the guy who recruited me into the specialty, whose respect that I craved and enjoyed professionally, and I had let him down and the profession down and myself down and everybody else. So that was the worst day.
Yeah, so this is the part of the movie where we go, what's he going to do? Is he going to go and try to replace that fentanyl? Is he going to come clean? What's he going to do? What did you do?
Yeah, and believe me, I thought about it. I thought about trying to Bonnie and Clyde the last little bit of it, and because it was all on fire behind me, metaphorically, and there was nothing to go back to as how it looked. He said some words to me, and this is where I think words make a huge difference. He said, "You're an excellent doctor. We love working with you. I love you personally. I want you to get well. This is a problem we've dealt with before. And when you're well, I want you to come back and work here." So those are the words he said. That was the fig leaf or the olive branch or the entreaty. And it did not sound like that. I know those are the words, but the way it sounded to me at the time was, we caught you. This is the end.
Sure.
You're going to go through all this stuff. You're going to prove our case for us by going away to treatment. That's how we're going to be certain that this is a problem. And then you're never coming back in here before. And that sound you're going to hear is the bolt sliding, snicking shut, and you're done as a doctor.
This episode of Fail Better is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.YEAH. From vacation rentals to hotels across the U.S., Booking.com has the ideal summer stay for absolutely anyone, even those who might seem impossible to please. Imagine you're looking for yourself. Easy. You're flexible, but have an eye for luxury. You've got plenty of paths to go down. Now imagine that you're also booking for your partner. And your kids, who tend to be picky about comfort and can get very worked up about sharing spaces. And maybe you're also looking for an in-law who rises earlier than the sun. Well, never fear. You can find exactly what you're booking for on Booking.com. And if you change your mind and decide you actually want something completely different, you can find that too. All on Booking.com. With my cooking skills shaping up, I'm increasingly looking for a place to stay with a nice kitchen. And believe me, there are some beautiful ones out there. The accommodations on Booking.com really cover every possible feature you could think of. And I know I'll find something that meets my standards every time I'm looking to kick back and cook up something nice. Find exactly what you're booking for. Booking.com. Booking.YEAH. Book today on the site or in the app. In the time between you got that phone call from the head of your department or the head of the hospital to when you had the meeting with him, did you start to try to handle this in your personal life as well, or were you just kind of focused on the professional aspect of it at this point?
Well,
it's a short window, right?
Yeah, I had boxed my personal life into a very tiny little space. I wasn't telling anyone the truth. I wasn't opened up to anyone. I was always too busy. I was always either back and forth to work or asleep or quietly throwing up in the bathroom or lying in bed, hoping that the night would pass quickly. There were an enormous number of off ramps and opportunities that I could have spoken up, but I was too scared and too confident that I could handle it myself. Sort of a weird. Oh no, we're frozen.
I'm frozen. Or I'm just
not
for
moving. A sec, maybe not.
This is why this is our first time filming, and I hate it because now I'm catching the sun, and I fucking got into radio because I like the idea of just being a voice out there.
Yes.
And now I'm fleeing the sun coming in the windows, and I'm moving around here, and I've completely fucked the flow of the conversation. Thank you, everyone, for wanting to go over to YouTube or wherever the hell we think we're going.
That's where the audience is on YouTube.
Yeah.
That's what they're telling me.
Okay,
so anyhow, it was this weird mixture of increasing confidence that I got this. I know it looks bad, but I can right, which is my professional life. My job in the OR is to take a death situation and turn it into a survival situation. That's my job.
Right.
And so I'm super well trained in that. But where I'm concerned, where I'm trying to save myself, it's literally the biggest Achilles heel you can have. It's the fatal flaw is to say, oh, I got this. I got this. I don't got this. I did not have this.
Isn't that a Mel Brooks movie? There's I got it. I don't got it.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. Yeah. A can of corn gave me a great big black eye. Right. So anyhow, for some reason, and probably this is not noble, it's probably because I had really no better options at that point. There was no going back to the hospital. I didn't want to die. I knew I didn't want to die, which would have been another alternative, I suppose.
And there are quite impressive statistics about anesthesiologists who do dabble.
Well, that's the other thing. Yeah, I forgot to mention. He said, we've been through this before.
Right.
With another resident. And I had... there's a resident that was in training before me and who had passed away a couple of years before I joined the department. They had found him dead in the call room, overdosed on fentanyl. So this chairman, and that's another one of those things where you know, thank God that he was tuned into that experience. Unfortunately, one of my colleagues who I never met lost his life, but it wasn't in vain, because that heightened the, I don't know, suspicion or sensitivity to
Right.
to the superstar resident who was dribbling off the court. And so it's, you never know what forces come, right? It's too early. It was too soon.
Right.
Soon, and I
Too
didn't
soon
know.
to tell.
Yeah, too soon to tell. So I leapt at the chance to do something different, and I abandoned my plan, which was
You felt a great relief in some sense.
I felt a great relief. I said, "Can I talk to you?" And he said, "I was hoping you would say that." And he gave me his address, and I went to his house, and I explained. And the only way for all that fentanyl to get back in the pharmacy would have been if I were standing in the pharmacy, because I had used it all.
Yeah.
And he gave me a number to call, which connected me to a program, and I just kept doing the thing they said. I did not think it was going to work, but I didn't have a better plan. I didn't have a better idea of what to do, and I just kept one footing in front of the other until
this program was an
this
NA program. An
no,
AA
this program. This program was the Medical Board Diversion Program, which is formally no longer in California. It was the first one in the nation. It's reformed in a different guise, but this was kind of the golden age of it, and I got very fortunate to be in with some of the original founding, thought leaders in the doctor wellness space. It was an outgrowth of the 1970s and all. And great counselors, great therapists, great group. I went to treatment for 100 days up at a doctor-focused treatment center in Oregon.
What did that treatment consist of, aside from getting physically off of the fentanyl?
So that was interesting, because I went through the, so this is October or the end of September, beginning of October of 1999, and I was I didn't have my plans worked out yet. I said I said yes, but I had no money to go to treatment. I had no wherewithal to do it. I had a dark night of the soul, trying to figure out if I should even be a doctor. And during all that time, I was out of fentanyl and decided the last thing I was going to do was try and get more opiates. I knew that would make things worse. I had a prescription pad. I could, probably go on the run for a few days or a week or two, but that would have just been, adding crimes to the thing and good chance of something really bad happening. I knew that was not the way.
And had you told your partner at this point?
Oh yeah, yes. That was an exciting conversation. The poor thing. Yeah. I said, there's something I have to tell you, and still, 27 years later, 26 years later, if I say those words in that order,
I have something to tell you.
This piece of the PTSD comes back up. Yes.
For me, it's whenever I hear my name, I think it's going to be bad. Like David.
Exactly.
Whenever I hear my name,
the inflection at the end, the rising.
Yeah.
Something we have to talk about.
Yeah.
So, Anyhow, she knew what was going on. Even more, another deeper level of disappointment and letdown and so forth for being appearing one way but being a different way. And so I detoxed at home, and home was the top of a Delta flat in Sacramento with a one little wall rattler air conditioner. It was still hot that time of the year, and lots of fentanyl and nothing. I mean, just the coldest of cold turkeys. It was me in a half-filled hot water bathtub trying to get the chill off. And there's this instantaneous switch between being Arctic cold to surface of the sun hot. And so I would stand up and stand in front of the fan and try and cool off. And there's a lot of that back and forth for a while until the chills died down.
That's
what
you would describe as the. I mean, this is one of the things that I am interested in terms of addiction to a drug, because we try and split up the components of it between the physical addiction and the mental or spiritual addiction. Or at least I do. I'm like, well, how many days before, if you're drinking every day, how many days before your body is okay? How many days of not drinking before you have that physical need? I guess it's not really something that we can quantify. But in your case, how many days was it before you were like, oh, my body isn't actually chemically
fighting
craving
me?
the fun?
Yeah. Well, so mentally I was done. Mentally I was finished with it, and as it turns out, never went back. And I think that's a huge piece of it. Why go through that misery if you're just going to go back and do it again? So I think that's super torture if you're not finished in your head. Physically, I was basically awake for close to 10 days, 12 days, something like that, of sleeping in 10-minute stretches. And then I didn't really sleep through the night for another 6 months. I had sleep disturbance for about another, or profound insomnia is a better way to say it, for months. Thank God for video games, because I played a lot of Max Payne during that time, which is an interesting game to play during all that time, and it helped take my mind off and give me something to do, because
Little problem to solve.
well, I was also in detox from work.
Yeah.
Right. So I had my entire life full with work and the hospital and all those dopamine hits and rewards and so forth. And that was all gone as well. So I went through a lot of withdrawal in the fall of '99, and it was 3 months before I could get into the treatment center for a bunch of reasons, timing and the board and economics was a piece of it. Fortunately, a guy I know lent me the down payment to go to rehab. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to go there. So I checked in sober.
You had the good luck of having some, not mentors, but friends along the way. They could have been derailed in a much more spectacular and horrible fashion if you hadn't had that chairman, if you hadn't had this guy. There's a certain sense, there's a certain sway of luck there, I guess.
There's no other. Grace is probably the better way to say it. Yeah, because it's nothing that I did. Nothing that I didn't like build up a bank of friendship and then I got to cash it in.
I might argue with you on that, because I might say that the chairman was the way he was because he saw something in you the way you were reacting, and your friend was the way he was or she was because he or she saw something in you that was authentic.
Could be. I paid off. So I did all that stuff. I worked as a general doctor for a while, which is one of the best experiences. That sort of early get well job, they call it. Get well. My get well job was doc in the box, which is the the guy that does your school physical and your pink eye and that kind of stuff. And there I got in touch with why I wanted to do this job in the first place. Yeah. It wasn't liver transplants, although those are fun. But the simple, stitches for a cut and sprained ankle and sore throats and new baby and those kinds of things. That's how I got attracted to medicine in the first place. So it was like, I don't know. It's like that scene in the superhero movies. Only instead of after you're a superhero, you've got to go back and not be one. You've got to go back and stock the shelves and chop the wood and that kind of stuff. And that's
and
definitely what
is your ego like at this point?
Grateful. I'm
really
just,
already there. There wasn't.
No, I had no. At the treatment center, I had a spiritual awakening, as they say in the recovery world, and that's where which is the gift of being wrong. That's what I got. I got the gift of insight into being wrong. So we do these exercises in treatment. They've gotten away from it a little bit, but they're still around. Where you do the steps, and they're rubric for getting to know oneself and understanding oneself in the world. That's all they are. There's lots of them.
You're not just talking about the 12 steps.
In this particular case, in this specific treatment center, I'm talking about the 12 steps, but you can get there through Celebrate Recovery or the Dharma, or there's it's the same path. It's the same way of self-discovery. The 10 bulls, right? The Buddhist wood blocks. It's all the same. In this particular case, it was step 2, which is phrased this way, which is we admitted came to believe that a power greater than us could restore us to sanity. Now that's like some lawyerese right there, right? Came to believe that a power than ourselves could restore us to sanity. If you take that step, so to speak, or if you ingest that understanding and make it your own, you have to concede you're insane. And which is, dramatic phrasing, but the truth is, thinking that I needed chemicals to be okay, that is insane. And I was just mistaken. All I was wrong. It doesn't mean I'm wrong. It just means I was mistaken. And once that stone came out of the wall, the whole thing fell down. Because if I'm wrong about something that at one point I was the most certain about anything I've ever been in my life, that I can make it as long as I have these chemicals to deal with, something to put between me and the world. If I'm wrong about that, something that I was certain of, what else am I wrong about? Am I wrong about my traumatic childhood, right? Am I wrong about my successes? Am I wrong about my role on Earth? I was wrong about most of it. And,
well,
and the gift of being wrong is that you can, I just guessed wrong. That's all.
So what's missing from that I like is a concept of shame, which is something that I've dealt with when I've been wrong. And something that I talk a lot about on the podcast here is the attendant shame that comes with the notion of failure.
Sure.
Before you get to the enlightened position of, at this point, we don't know, that's fun for us to say. That's hard to live by.
In the fire, not so easy. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
so
sure.
There was, how did you alleviate that? I'm going to assume that it was there. I'm going to assume that there were parts of you or moments in your day when you were like, oh shit, I now those people are going to know that this happened, and I was this high flyer, and now I've fucked up, and I'm ashamed of myself, even though I know I'm on the right track, and I know that those were all illusions of success in a way, but it hurts. It's hurting me. My ego is hurt. Yeah. My ego wants a little inflation.
It hurt. The thing where it hurt me the most was, so I did the Doc in the Box, totally fun. The board says, actually, you know what, you can, because I wanted to go back to anesthesia. I wanted to finish.
You wanted to go back.
I did. I wanted to go back.
That didn't strike you as the classic definition of doing the same thing?
Well, of course. I mean, that's what everybody was worried about, that it was proximity to, is handling the substances, and that's the OR that got me intoxicated or gave me this problem. And I didn't believe any of that was true. And I was willing to bet my life on it. And many people were willing to let me do that. The chairman at the top of the list. But I wasn't just betting my own life. I was possibly betting somebody else's, right? Because if it all went bad and I was messed up and I was taking care of somebody else, then I could maybe hurt them or kill them.
Sure.
And so that's where all the alarm was. Ultimately, I went back, and this is with monitoring and all kinds of accountability and safeguards, and also several years at this point. I was 3 years sober before I went back to the OR. So I'd had a lot of habit practice in living life without anything. But the part that hurt, the shame piece of it, was all the chatter there he is. Yeah. That's the guy. Remember?
There goes Junkie Doctor.
There goes Junkie Doctor. Exactly. And that was all right, because I had earned that, and that was on me. The part that was the hardest is that my wife worked in the same hospital. And so she dealt with all that. She dealt with all the gossip and the back talk and the that sort of water cooler stuff, including from her surgery chairman, who counseled her to dump me and run away. Which, yes.
Well, there you have a different chairman. We talked about your heroic chairman. Now we have a different chairman.
I had a different chairman. She had a different chairman over there. Yeah. But there was a lot of that going on. And so my actions, besides scaring her and endangering somebody that she loves and cares about, which of course we don't think of when we're going through all this stuff, but I certainly realized it later, I also made it tougher for her professionally and made it worse for her at work because, at that point when I first went back. Now nobody thinks about me, I'm sure, but I did ultimately not just finish the residency, but for many years I came back to the department and gave the talk on what to look for so that you can spot the next Jason running around the hallways who might need help. So I became a success stories.
Just as a matter of curiosity.
Oh yeah, it's all the things. It's overworking. It's taking extra cases. It's the superstar stud standout.
So what you're looking for,
yes,
to see the person who's really going to fuck up is look at the successful people. Is what we're looking for.
Where we're hiding. Yes.
There's where the problem is.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, or the people who were and then have something's gone wrong, right? This hygiene or tardiness where that wasn't the case, or forgetfulness, or starting to degrade. Acute performance degradation is one of the hallmarks. Also, used to be sharp, but now something's wrong.
Right.
And and the main thing was there's a omerta of silence in medicine, and maybe there is in Hollywood too. We found out with all the Weinstein stuff and all that, but there's a nobody wants to be the one that snitches. Nobody wants to be the one, because if you get it wrong, maybe he's just going through a fight with his wife or something, and now and there's this reflexive. I don't want people getting into my business, so I'm not gonna drop a dime on the.
Sure.
That's getting better. It's getting better. We don't tolerate the abusive surgeon anymore. We don't tolerate somebody smelling like alcohol anymore.
It's true, but I think there's still this sense of the goose that's laying the golden eggs.
That's definitely true.
So we got this superstar here. Let's not screw this up. As long as he's still laying those golden eggs, it's not my business what he's doing or she's doing.
Exactly. The entourage problem, right?
Yeah,
exactly. I didn't have an entourage, but it was the whole thing. And I don't talk about it very often, but the whole thing about
let me just say I really appreciate your candor, and it's powerful. Your story is powerful, and I appreciate your honesty, and the articulation of it is stunning as well. So if you don't mind continuing, I would love to.
No. And then, so I went back to, I went back to the hospital. I did all those things and stayed sober. And the story went from this unfortunate soul, fuck up, exhibit A, went to, wow, people can, it's a return to redemption story. And again, that's grace. I did my part, which was to not drink or use. I did my part, which was to show up and continue to work on self-improvement. And then as things get better and my life got better and I had a son and then later a daughter, and this beautiful life materialized just from the simple act of, what you have to do in order to, what I had to do in order to live life on the natch, as they say, right? So without anything.
I've never heard that.
On the natch, natural. It's an old 40s term, 1940s. Okay. I'm bringing it back.
All right. Well, we'll try. Yeah. On the natch.
On the natch. To live that way, you got to ask for help, and you have to tell the truth, and you have to show up, and you have to be patient, and not seek external validation. That turns out to be the root of the problem, is needing to be constantly reassured that I'm okay. I'm okay because I can save lives, or I'm okay because I can go on the roof when the helicopter comes in for the trauma, blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. That is all, that's all ego. That's all. I don't feel enough, but I need to be reassured that I'm enough.
And you trace that. This is the wound that you're talking about.
Yeah. This is the wound. I couldn't fix my dad. Right. I couldn't say as if that were my responsibility as a 5-year-old. Is it not
the human condition, or is it certain people are wounded in this way more deeply than others?
I think it is I think it's a bell-shaped curve. I think you'll meet some people, and they're like, I don't even know what you're talking about. I have a great life, always have. So you're like,
But with
really?
those people, do you think you're just full of shit, you're not getting it yet, or are you just
I
one of the
want to
lucky
think that.
ones?
I want to
No,
think that, but I think, well, okay, lucky, maybe not.
at this
I
point, we don't
mean,
know.
we don't know. I mean, I have been in hell. I've been in at the lowest points of low,
Yeah.
and this morning, looking at the buds on the trees and the birds jumping in them, it has, and I don't know if there's a direct correlation, but I think that having seen the dark side, I appreciate the other side so much more.
We got to know each other when I came out of rehab uh, for addictive behavior, sexual addiction. And you were my friend at that point. I mean, we'd met before that, but we we reconnected. And I will just say this, that even though that addiction specialist would be how I thought of you, that was your job. You never asked me for a penny. You never, it was never, you were my friend who happened to be really knowledgeable in this field that I was now looking at myself. And again, I'm still ambivalent about the whole idea of compulsive addictions and things like that. I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
addiction is the right word. And my
Yep.
stupid question to you would be, what is addiction? And I'm going to ask that at some point.
Yes.
But
Yes.
I'm ambivalent about all that. But what I'm not ambivalent about is that I had, like you, I had a hole inside, or a sense of unworthiness, or a sense of failure, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
In my case, as you say, you couldn't save your father, did you say, or your mother? Yeah,
Either.
either. Well,
Yeah.
I couldn't save my mother, I
Mm-hmm.
think, is probably at the root of all my evil.
Mm-hmm.
And I had been, like you, I had achieved success, which made me untouchable in a way, or I was a goose. I was laying golden eggs. So don't get in the way of his process. Um, so that success for me enabled me to be an idiot, and to do things that were destructive and self-destructive. So I welcomed the window at that
Mm-hmm.
point, because it's on some level I knew that I was being inauthentic or dishonest at the
Sure.
very least. I hate that I'm thanking you in front of other people right now, because that's what I hate about this world that we live in right now. I'm happy to be thanking you, but I'm mad at myself that I'm thanking you so that other people hear it in a sense. So let me get over that
Yeah.
guilt.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
in
Yeah.
terms of brand and shit like that
I
that I
know. I
can't
hate that.
stand.
I hate that too.
I hate it
I
too.
hate that
So
too.
let me say I'm going to thank you in private as well.
Yeah.
But what I come back to is that fact. I mean, it's just that fact that it was never a doctor-patient relationship. It was a peer-to-peer relationship. There was no exchange of money. There was never even a discussion of that. And you kind of opened me up into this world of 12 steps and accountability, which I really appreciated. And, opened me up into a realm of knowing, or at least of admitting that you don't know. Let's say a realm of unknowing
Right.
that I would never have wanted to be in. Like you, I wanted to know things. I wanted to master things. I don't know
Definitely.
where I'm going with this, but I guess I wanted to say
No.
thank you.
Oh yeah. And I'll say two things. One is you're welcome, and thank you back at you. The reason I did that with you, and it's do you want to know the answer in the back of the book about that? Because that was deliberate. That was deliberate back then. I had a feeling that was the only way to reach you. That was the only way to get in, is to take all of the economic or all of the professional piece of it out of it. And so I played a hunch.
Are you saying you knew I was cheap? Is that what you're saying right now?
No, I knew you weren't. I knew that was not it. No,
Yeah.
that's not it. But I knew that it would be more, just speaking plainly, it would be more difficult for you to defend against
Yeah.
things I was reflecting back to you, or things that I was saying, or observations. And so I just decided that I made that decision because I didn't want you to miss out on the joys of this awesome experience for something silly like that, trivial like that.
Well,
And then we've gotten to do amazing things. I mean,
yeah.
the friendship was not it's not a construct in order to be able to get in. It was true, and it remains.
Well, the struggle for me within the friendship was always, and maybe this is a struggle within friendships in general, and maybe marriages as well. But I was not eternally. I'm not eternally comfortable in the position of the one who knows less, or friendship is hard to maintain with an expert and a novice, and that's where we entered into our friendship in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I hope we've been able to kind of, equalize in some way. But that, if you say you had a sense that money was going to be the problem, yeah, possibly money makes it feel weird, but also there was, for me, because I have an ego, and let's go back to the ego, I can have a friendship with somebody who has expertise in this thing that I don't have, but it can't stay that way. I have to be able to equalize, and I think most friendships do, and marriages as well.
Yeah, but if you recall, you did. I mean, I had aspirations to tell stories in your field, and you mentored me in that. So you're the expert in that, and guided me through that, and to success, and scratch that itch. Help me get to that thing. So I think we swapped. We'll say we bartered expertise in that, as far as the professional piece of it goes.
Well, what I would want to pivot to for the last part of this is your job now and addiction, the business of addiction, let's say. That's a crass way to put it, but there is a big business out there, and it's kind of a Wild West at this point. But I would like for you to talk to me a little bit about what you're doing now, what your business is now, and how you go about merging the business side with the service side. And I know that they're
that's tricky.
Yes, tricky. Yeah.
So it's not the Wild West of The Searchers, of John Ford's The Searchers. It's more like the Wild West of Unforgiven or Tombstone. So there's a few buildings up now.
Yeah.
There's a saloon and a church and the courthouse.
Right.
So I've been doing this job for 20 years in the addiction medicine field, and it used to be way wilder and way westier in terms of it was only the downstream tenets and experience of the 12-step community. It was hardly any science or medications or observations. I wrote an article today on my little fledgling Substack account, which was about the mathematics of the timing and the intensity of interventions. Right, so we forget. We get sober, or get your habits under control, or get away from the refrigerator and eat less. You get your weight where you want it, whatever that is. And we all have a tendency to drift back to the way we used to be, and that's human nature. But when you get maybe a text message reminder or a phone call, or someone knocks on the door and says, "Hey, David, we're worried." David, right? Some of this, and so there's a mathematical relationship between the intensity of an intervention and it being annoying. Sometimes they're perceived as annoying. So it's interesting stuff. I think The field has gotten more organized. In many states, we have gone through turmoil where there were bad actors that were, selling patients, or fly-by-night floozy facilities that were not giving a square deal. So that's mostly gotten better.
My experience of it being processed through that system was that, and this is not you, that they were charging a lot of money to basically use the concepts and the precepts of Alcoholics Anonymous, which are free.
Here's your $30,000 big book.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's what a lot of it was. And in the era when nothing works, so at least try this, I think the standards were or our expectations anyway, were so low that you might be able to get away with that. We've learned a lot. We've learned a lot about what works. And we know that the longer you stay engaged in a treatment program, so that one that I was involved in when I went back at the beginning of these tales, that was a 5-year-long program.
Oh.
The 5-year-long physician's diversion, or its addiction management program, has a 90 or 95% success rate. So there is something that works. There is a gold standard, which is to stay connected with the process long enough to form new habits. Addiction and habits are the same thing. It's the same thing. Uh-huh. You asked me about definition of addiction earlier. One of my favorite, I have many, but one of them is activity without progress. So we do a lot, but don't get anywhere. A lot of motion, but not coordinated. And so the business is mature. The field. I guess my
pushback against that would be, that sounds a little capitalist American to me. Activity without progress seems like a Buddhist principle as well. That might be seen as a koan as well. Like, oh, today was great. There was a lot of activity and no progress. Like progress being this American capitalist kind of a virtue.
Maybe there's two ways to have no progress.
Yes.
So if you're trying, let's say you're trying to go south, you're on the globe and you're trying to go south. That's the direction you've identified that you want to go. The two places you can have no progress are everywhere on the globe if you don't move. That's the obvious one. And at the South Pole. So the Buddhists have reached, the enlightened Buddhists have reached the South Pole. There's nowhere else to go for progress. But the rest of us are probably a ways off.
One of the things that I push against in addiction speak is to call it a disease. And when I say it's not a disease, the way I understand disease, and then they'll say dis-ease. But breaking that down is instructive to me, because it's like, yes, it is a dis-ease that makes us go out and do things either catastrophically bad or catastrophically good.
Right.
And that's the human condition is, I'm not quite content where I'm sitting right now. I'm going to go do something. And my kind of like consternation in the face of curing that disease is, how can you cure what it is to be human? But I think what you're saying is, okay, some humans are dealing with it in a way that is more constructive, and some humans are dealing with more destructive, and then of course most humans are a mixture of the two.
Yes.
And what you're saying, you're lending out a hand to those who are in the destructive mode primarily.
Yes.
Or self-destructive.
Sometimes you don't realize that what you're doing. So but everyone who comes into treatment has two problems. And I had two problems when I went in. One problem was the substances themselves, which had taken on a life of their own, and they were a problem. But they were a solution at one point. That thing that turned against me and turned into a problem was, at one point, a solution for how I felt. So if you get rid of the substances, or you get rid of the habitual behavior, or you get rid of the addictive process, whatever you want to say that is, you still have the person left who was motivated to move around or do something different, or had dis-ease.
It's what's underneath. as you began this interview with, what's underneath the
Yes.
impulse to the behavior. But the other question, because I worry about the children, all the children,
Mm-hmm.
and the addiction to the phone, the dopamine, reward system that is so entrapping of all our children at this point.
Yeah.
So difficult. And I think there's a whole new world out there of addiction to phones that is going to have to be addressed. I just feel like we're fucked. Like how are we going to deal with this for kids? You talk about a 5-year, the best stats that you have is somebody to go away for 5 years or somehow be in a program for 5 years. Do you start at the age of 13 for 5 years, or do you start at the age of 14 for 5 years? How are we going to get out of this? Or do we just throw up our hands and go, this is the way life is going to be from now on?
I think we need a global digital detox. I think we need to get away from. I'm interested in this thing. There's this device that is your phone will read it and it will unlock your phone. So if you lock it from your apps, from your social media apps, or whatever habitual thing you're doing,
yeah,
you can leave this at home, and the only way to get at that stuff is when you come back and put this next to the phone. So it's the key. There's no code. You can, okay, I changed my, whatever you hear on the other side of that door, don't open it. Open the door, right? So it's a way to modify your own behavior.
right.
The whole world of that stuff is interesting. There are guys like me, so there are addiction experts at all of the social media companies that are and the gambling companies and so forth. This sports gambling, trying to figure out how to make their products even stickier. And what they're messing with is, to bring it back to your field, is they're messing with our stories. So the best stories have mystery with opportunity. That's the best stories, right? That's and then that's the hook. And so that's because in the world, when we're looking for food or shelter or safety or a mate or whatever, we're hooked by opportunity and mystery, but mystery is also scary and dangerous. So maybe this new post will be something that's totally awesome and that I'll get likes and validation, or maybe it'll be something bad. But either way, I have to check. Right. And the checking is the hook, and that's how we're built. That's why this is not, look, I'm not saying that somebody who had to have his heart valve replaced because of infection from heroin doesn't have a severe case of whatever you want to call that.
Right.
But the shortcutting to relief by using substances or behaviors or the phones, that we're all susceptible to. Everyone's susceptible to it. So if it's a disease, everyone's got it, because everyone has something that they over lean on for relief. Everyone does. So I don't think it's a distinction that's very useful to say this person has a disease and this person doesn't, because everybody is built. We're all wired up the same way to keep. Listen, if you didn't keep doing things the same thing, expecting a different result, you would never learn to walk.
Right.
So doing the things over and over again, expecting a different result, is also the key to success. Right. Well, maybe next time I won't be so scared when I go on stage, or maybe the next time I'll be able to get the weight off the rack, or whatever it is. We keep trying. That's how we get better. But also that can obviously become pathologic.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to when you figure it out.
Yes. That's what you're going to see when you figure out the source. It's yourself, right? The good news is it's your fault. Your life, the way it is, it's your responsibility. And so my message fundamentally is take responsibility. So it doesn't matter what happened. It doesn't matter how you got here. It doesn't matter what your shame is, or the mistakes that you made, or the ways that you failed. The way out, the way forward, is to take responsibility. I did this. This is me. I want to live a better way. I want to live
accountability.
Yeah.
So
Accountability.
I thank you for coming on and kind of not skirting around, but allowing me to skirt around these things that are interesting to me, but also, as I said in the middle of this, being as full of candor and bravery and lack of shame, all these things that I think are exemplary. So, Jason, thank you for this and for being in my life.
My pleasure, David. Many years to come.
Thanks so much for listening to Fail Better. If you haven't yet, now is a great time to subscribe to Lemonada Premium. You'll get bonus content like my thoughts on conversations with guests including Alec Baldwin and Rob Lowe. Just hit the subscribe button on Apple Podcasts, or for all other podcast apps, head to lemonadapremium.com to subscribe. That's lemonadapremium.com. Fail Better is a production of Lemonada Media in coordination with King Baby. It is produced by Keegan Zema, Aria Bracci, and Donnie Matias. Our engineer is Brian Castillo. Our SVP of Weekly is Steve Nelson. Our VP of New Content is Rachel Neal. Special thanks to Carl Ackerman, Tom Kupinski, and Brad Davidson. The show is executive produced by Stephanie Whittles-Wax, Jessica Cordova-Kramer, and me, David Duchovny. The music is also by me and my band, the lovely Colin Lee, Pat McCusker, Mitch Stewart, Davis Rowan, and Sebastian Modak. You can find us online at Lemonada Media, and you can find me at David Duchovny. Follow Fail Better wherever you get your podcasts, or listen ad-free on Amazon Music with your Prime membership.